Oklahoman Newsroom. This is an OU update. I'm Jenny Carlson here with OU beat writer Ryan Aber. Ryan, it is game week. Finally, Florida Atlantic headed to town on Saturday. 11 o'clock start on Fox. And obviously the Sooners are breaking in a new quarterback. We've talked a lot about that. But good news for Kyler Murray, or anybody that's going to play quarterback for the Sooners this year, are the skill positions, are the guys around the quarterback. And tip of the spear has got to be Rodney Anderson. It's a kind of a script flipped after last year, right?
Yeah, you know, last year there was no question at quarterback with Baker Mayfield returning for his third year as a starter, but there were questions at wide receiver and at running back where you didn't have anybody that was really proven. They wound up really cycling through 4 guys for most of the first half of the season until Rodney Anderson, who had been buried on the depth chart, asserted himself as that #1 running back, and then CeeDee Lamb and Marquise Brown, we know what they did, emerging as the go-to wide receivers. This year, I don't think there are as unquestioned or as many questions around the quarterback as there was with those 2 positions last year, but Kyler Murray still has yet to be a full-time starter in college football, and certainly for the Sooners. Did start that 1 game last year against West Virginia when Baker Mayfield was suspended, but they know they've got Rodney Anderson to count on. They know they've got a really solid offensive line to count on, and that can get you some leeway early in the season as you sort of feel your way through the offense with a new quarterback.
I'm sure Kyler Murray feels really good about that. How does Rodney Anderson feel about it? Because as you mentioned, it's easy to forget that he was 3rd, 4th string, a guy that you wondered, hey, has his time passed him by? Now here he is. How does he feel about being the guy that's really the unquestioned leader of those skill positions?
You know, outwardly, with what he says, he's not going to say a whole lot about it. He's a guy who's just like, whatever my role is, and I'm cool with that. But when you dig a little bit deeper into it, I mean, this is a guy who literally slept in the running back meeting room for big chunks of camp, just to be there all the time, to be ready, to learn, to be ready to be available for those young running backs, especially Kennedy Brooks, the redshirt freshman, and TJ Pledger, the true freshman, who they really like. And one of those guys is going to be their 4th running back, and we've seen OU pretty consistently use 4 running backs in the rotation at some point. So he's certainly grabbed that room by the horns, but outwardly he's not going to say much about it.
Yeah, you know, he obviously, as we mentioned, he wasn't getting a ton of run early last year, but late in the year, very heavy rotation, lots of touches, whether out of the backfield or catching the ball. Is there a sense with all that talent around him, they obviously want to use him to help out Kyler Murray, to help out, you know, sort of ease the transition, but is there a sense within the coaching staff what the sweet spot is for Rodney Anderson? I mean, it was such a swing from no running, you know, not playing at all to being so heavily used. Do they feel like there's a happy medium in there where he's going to be at his best in terms of carries and touches?
Well, I think they want him maybe to limit him a little bit from what they were at the end of last year, but I think he's still going to be the primary #1 running back. I don't think there's any question about that. I think Trey Sermon and Marcellus Sutton are going to have their chances. You know, maybe that 4th guy if things fall well, but I think they prefer not to just, you know, run Rodney Anderson, you know, 25 times a game. Yeah. Try to keep him at least a little bit fresh, and when you've got the depth that they've got there, you can afford that at times, but he is their workhorse. There's no doubt about that.
Aside, but a related question, you mentioned TJ Pledger earlier. Any idea if he'll get some playing time early? This new redshirt rule, he could play in 4 games and still redshirt. So what's the likelihood we see him at all?
Yeah, Jay Boulware, we talked to him last night, and he wouldn't really go into, you know, who's their #4 guy. I think what you're going to see early in the season is maybe some feeling out for that spot. Is it TJ Pledger? Is it Kennedy Brooks, who's already redshirted? One of those guys is going to be that #4 guy, and the other one probably isn't going to get a whole lot of work unless it's, you know, garbage time. But I think that they're going to at least allow TJ Pledger to play in a few games and feel out if he's ready to perform at this level.
Such a ballyhooed recruit, one of those guys that with this new redshirt rule, it's going to be really interesting to see how these guys are used, because they do have those games they can play, and not lose that red shirt. Again, 11 o'clock start on Saturday. Fox, it's Oklahoma and Florida Atlantic. Be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.